Since its debut in 1989, The Simpsons has captivated audiences with its sharp humor, biting satire, and unforgettable characters. However, over the years, the series has gone beyond mere comedy and come to be seen as a modern oracle, predicting global events with eerie accuracy. From technological advancements to political scandals, numerous predictions made in the animated show have ended up coming true, leaving many wondering, how is this possible? Is it mere coincidence, or do the show's writers possess a unique vision of the world? Among all the intriguing predictions, some stand out due to their impressive accuracy and the impact they had on the real world. From Donald Trump's rise to the presidency to the discovery of fundamental scientific particles, The Simpsons always seem to be one step ahead of reality. But after all, how did a simple cartoon manage to predict so many historical events with such precision? Hello, restless minds. I'm Code, and this is Discover It, where curiosity knows no limits. Subscribe and help the channel grow, because every time you like, comment, or share, you're helping us bring these discoveries to more people. Together, we can create a community where curiosity can change the world. Now, let's dive into the video. In 2000, the episode Bart to the Future featured a scene that at the time seemed like nothing more than an exaggerated joke. Lisa Simpson becoming President of the United States after a chaotic administration by Donald Trump. The idea of Trump, a real estate mogul and reality TV star, reaching the highest office in the country seems so absurd that it worked perfectly as satire. However, what was once a simple joke became reality 16 years later, when Trump won the 2016 election and took office as the US president. Imagine watching a cartoon episode and years later seeing that craziness happen in real life. Well, The Simpsons not only imagined it, but got it spot on. The episode depicts a country plunged into a severe economic crisis inherited from Trump's administration, a striking similarity to the concerns that arose during his actual presidency. Additionally, the character's demeanor in the show closely mirrors the leadership style Trump adopted, with controversial statements, a governance style based on self-promotion, and an administration filled with turmoil. The most remarkable thing is that the show's creators not only predicted that he would become president, but also captured the essence of the impact his administration would have on the political landscape. Another detail that stands out is a specific campaign scene featuring Trump filmed years later, which seems like an exact replica of a moment from the show. In 2015, a video went viral showing Trump descending an escalator at an event, waving to his supporters. The similarity to an identical scene from The Simpsons episode was so uncanny that many began to believe there was something supernatural behind these predictions. How could an animated show create images so similar to future reality? Whether it's coincidence, the sharp perception of the writers, or pure luck, the fact remains that The Simpsons were spot on in predicting an event that many thought was impossible. This raises an intriguing question. Does the show truly predict the future, or does it simply reflect social and political trends that eventually materialize? In a 1993 episode titled Marge in Chains, The Simpsons presented a storyline that decades later would eerily resemble the COVID-19 pandemic. In the episode, a virus called Osaka flu spreads rapidly through Springfield after being brought from Japan in contaminated juice boxes. The disease spreads, causing panic, overcrowded hospitals, and desperate citizens demanding an immediate cure. Although the name and origin of the virus are different, the similarities to the 2020 global crisis are disturbing. Was this just another coincidence or an astonishing premonition? The episode accurately captures not only the spread of the virus, but also the social reactions that would become a reality years later. Springfield's population panics, demanding answers from authorities, while misinformation and fear take over the streets. This is reminiscent of the early months of the COVID-19 pandemic, when a lack of knowledge about the disease led to conspiracy theories, mass panic buying of supplies, and a frantic search for miracle cures. The most unsettling part is that the collective hysteria in the episode leads the population to believe in a false solution. something we saw happen in real life with the spread of misinformation about questionable treatments. Another striking detail is how the episode portrays the epidemic's impact on society's functioning. In the cartoon, essential services collapse, doctors are overwhelmed, and the population resorts to desperate measures to protect themselves. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we saw overcrowded hospitals, exhausted healthcare workers, and governments struggling to contain the chaos. Even the scene of citizens storming a laboratory in search of a cure mirrors the protests and demonstrations that took place worldwide against health restrictions and government measures. Whether The Simpsons got it right by chance, or whether the writers had an acute perception of human behavior in times of crisis, we will never know for sure. But the fact that an animated series described a global pandemic's events so accurately raises an unsettling question. To what extent can fiction anticipate reality? Science is a field full of mysteries, and somehow, The Simpsons seem to have anticipated one of modern physics' greatest breakthroughs. In a 1998 episode titled The Wizard of Evergreen Terrace, Homer Simpson, during one of his failed attempts to become a great inventor, is seen scribbling a mathematical equation on a blackboard. Nothing unusual, right? However, years later, scientists realized that this equation closely resembled the calculation for the Higgs boson's mass, a fundamental particle that would only be discovered in 2012. How was this possible? You're just casually watching The Simpsons, and suddenly you realize that Homer predicted one of modern physics' greatest discoveries. The guy couldn't even flip a burger properly, but he solved the equation of the universe. The Higgs boson, also called the God particle, was theorized in the 1960s as a key component in explaining how fundamental particles in the universe acquire mass. However, its existence remained only a hypothesis until the Large Hadron Collider, LHC, at CERN finally detected it in a groundbreaking experiment. The discovery was considered a milestone in physics, and the coincidence between Homer's equation and actual scientific calculations left many people baffled. Was it just a lucky guess, or was there something more going on behind the scenes of the show? The most plausible explanation is that one of the episode's writers, David X. Cohen, has a background in mathematics and computer science and may have included an equation based on existing models. However, the level of precision in the formula displayed on Homer's blackboard still impresses experts, as it closely matches the actual calculations used to predict the Higgs boson's mass. This raises the possibility that the show's creators even unknowingly ended up envisioning one of the greatest scientific advances of the century before it happened. Coincidence, advanced mathematical knowledge, or simply luck? Regardless of the answer, this prediction shows that The Simpsons not only reflect popular culture, but also somehow manage to stay ahead of even the scientific community. But if a simple cartoon scene managed to anticipate such a grand discovery, how many other hidden truths might still be buried in the episodes of The right to privacy has always been a sensitive issue, but few could have imagined the scale of government surveillance until Edward Snowden's revelations in 2013. However, The Simpsons seem to have anticipated this reality 6 years earlier. In The Simpsons movie 2007, in the film, the Simpson family becomes fugitives after Homer causes an environmental disaster in Springfield. During their escape, a seemingly comedic scene turns eerily prophetic. NSA agents are shown monitoring all citizens' conversations through a massive surveillance system. At the time, the scene seemed like satirical exaggeration. But what if it wasn't? In 2013, Edward Snowden, a former NSA analyst, leaked top-secret documents revealing that the US government was spying on millions of citizens through electronic surveillance programs. Phone calls, emails, messages, and even social media activities were being collected without public knowledge. The revelations sparked global outrage and raised deep concerns about privacy and security. What was once considered an absurd conspiracy became an undeniable fact. How did The Simpsons manage to predict this massive violation of civil rights so far in advance? Beyond the scene itself, the movie accurately captured the irony and disregard with which authorities would later handle the surveillance issue in the real world. In the film, the NSA is portrayed as a gigantic organization where agents listen to and monitor conversations, almost mechanically, with no ethical concerns. This same indifference was observed in the statements of many political figures after the real scandal broke. When Snowden's disclosures were made public, leaders from various nations argued that surveillance was necessary for national security, completely ignoring debates about individual freedom. The NSA case reminds us that no matter how absurd a satire may seem, it can be much closer to reality than we imagine. If a simple animated film in 2007 could predict one of the biggest espionage scandals of the century, what other unsettling truths are being portrayed on screen before coming to light? In a 1998 episode titled "When You Dish Upon a Star," The Simpsons made an apparently harmless joke about Disney's growing dominance in the entertainment industry. In a quick scene, a sign at the headquarters of 20th Century Fox displayed a sarcastic message, "20th Century Fox, a division of Walt Disney Company." At the time, this seemed like just a joke about Disney's insatiable appetite for acquisitions. However, what no one imagined was that 21 years later, this joke would become reality. The Simpsons made this joke in 1998, and 21 years later, boom, Disney bought Fox. If I were a CEO of any company, I'd be worried about any jokes they make. In December 2017, Disney announced a multi-billion-dollar deal to acquire 21st Century Fox, the successor to 20th Century Fox, solidifying its dominance over some of the biggest franchises in pop culture. The acquisition was finalized in March 2019, making Disney the owner of historic studios' television channels and even The Simpsons itself. This means that, ironically, the show ended up predicting its own acquisition. How could a simple scene from an animated series foresee one of the biggest deals in entertainment history? What makes this prediction even more impressive is the context of the time. In 1998, the idea that Disney could absorb Fox seemed absurd. Both companies were independent giants competing in various areas including film, animation, and television. But over the years, Disney began aggressively expanding its empire, acquiring Pixar, Marvel, and Lucasfilm. The final move was the Fox acquisition, establishing the company as one of the most powerful forces in global entertainment. This prediction demonstrates that The Simpsons not only reflect popular culture, but also have a keen eye for market trends and the future of the entertainment industry. But was this just another coincidence? Or did the show's writers truly have privileged insight into the entertainment economy's direction? In 2014, The Simpsons released an episode titled "You Don't Have to Live Like a Referee," in which Homer Simpson becomes a referee at the World Cup. During the episode, he encounters a system riddled with corruption where soccer officials try to bribe him to manipulate match results. At first, this seemed like just an exaggerated satire about the long-rumored corruption within FIFA. However, just a year later, this episode would take on new significance with one of the biggest scandals in soccer history. In 2015, an FBI-led operation resulted in the arrest of several top FIFA executives on charges of fraud, money laundering, and bribery. The scandal revealed a multi-billion-dollar corruption scheme involving everything from World Cup host selections to illicit payments influencing sports decisions. Then FIFA President Sepp Blatter was removed from office, and several officials were convicted. What was initially just a fictional storyline in The Simpsons turned out to reflect a real criminal scheme that shook the soccer world. Another astonishing detail in the episode is that it not only predicted the scandal, but also correctly foresaw Germany's victory in the 2014 World Cup. In the episode, Homer referees a decisive match where Germany defeats Brazil, something that actually happened that year, although in real life, it was in a devastating fashion with the unforgettable 7-1 loss in the semifinals. The combination of these accurate predictions made this one of the most impressive prophecies in the series. Whether by coincidence or the writer's sharp perception, this prediction raises an interesting question. How many other corrupt practices that we consider mere rumors might actually be real? Are sporting events truly as unpredictable as we think, or is there much more happening behind the scenes than we imagine? In 2012, The Simpsons made a sharp joke about the brewing financial crisis in Europe. In the episode Politically Inept with Homer Simpson, there is a scene where a news broadcast displays an alarming headline. Europe puts Greece up for sale on eBay. At the time, it seemed like just an exaggerated joke about the country's dire economic situation, but only a few years later, the joke would become eerily real when Greece plunged into the worst financial crisis in its modern history. Greece's economic crisis peaked in 2015 when the country declared technical bankruptcy, unable to repay its massive debt to the European Union. Banks closed, citizens faced withdrawal restrictions, and the government was forced to accept harsh austerity measures imposed by international creditors. The Greek economy collapsed, leading to record unemployment, violent protests, and widespread impoverishment of the population. What began as a financial crisis turned into a social catastrophe, just as The Simpsons had suggested. What makes this prediction even more astonishing is that in 2012, there was still hope that Greece could recover without severe consequences. However, the series accurately captured the inevitability of the disaster, mocking the fragility of the European economy and the country's dependence on external financial institutions. The eBay joke, though absurd, reflected the sentiment among many economists that Greece was on the verge of being sold off to salvage its economy. It sounds like a joke, but Greece almost did have to be sold to get out of the crisis. The Simpsons are sharper than any bank economist. This prediction demonstrates how The Simpsons not only anticipate specific events, but also identify economic and political patterns that unfold over time. If even an animated satire could foresee Greece's fate so clearly, how many other crises are already taking shape before our eyes, just waiting for the right moment to explode? In 2007, in the episode Treehouse of Horror 19, The Simpsons tackled an issue that at the time seemed like nothing more than an exaggerated joke about the US electoral system. In the scene, Homer Simpson tries to vote for Barack Obama during the presidential election, but the electronic voting machine automatically changes his vote to the Republican candidate John McCain. Homer insists, but the error keeps happening, until the machine literally swallows him, turning the satire into a comedic yet absurd moment. However, this joke would stop being mere fiction just a few years later. During the 2012 US presidential elections, a viral video recorded in Pennsylvania showed an electronic voting machine switching votes from Barack Obama to his opponent, Mitt Romney. The incident sparked controversy and reignited debates about the security of electronic voting machines, raising concerns about the vulnerability of these systems to technical failures or even fraud. What seemed like an unlikely satire in The Simpsons ended up reflecting exactly what many voters experienced in real life. Beyond the 2012 case, similar failures were reported in subsequent elections, further fueling concerns about the reliability of electronic voting systems in various countries. Numerous conspiracy theories began circulating, suggesting that voting machines could be remotely manipulated or that hackers could alter results without leaving a trace. Although most of these claims were never proven, the Simpsons scene became a symbol of public distrust in the electoral system. This episode is yet another example of how The Simpsons capture fears and concerns within society before they even become public debates. But this leads to an intriguing question. Did the writers simply identify an underlying societal concern, or did they actually manage to foresee the challenges democracy would face in the future? In 1995, The Simpsons stunned audiences by imagining a future filled with technological innovations that at the time seemed like pure science fiction. In the episode Lisa's Wedding, the story is set in a futuristic scenario where Lisa Simpson is engaged and preparing for her wedding. During the episode, a curious detail caught viewers' attention. Her fiancé, Hugh, uses a smartwatch to make calls and send messages. This technology, which seemed like a distant concept at the time, would become a reality almost 20 years later. Predicting technology is complicated, but The Simpsons casually threw in a smartwatch back in 1995. Steve Jobs must have watched that episode and thought, good idea. The first modern smartwatches began appearing in the early 2010s, but it was in 2015, with the launch of the Apple Watch, that this technology truly became mainstream. Today, these devices not only tell time, but also allow users to send messages, make calls, monitor their health, and even access AI-powered assistants. The similarity between the function of the watch in the episode and today's smartwatches is remarkable. How did the writers manage to anticipate this trend so precisely? Beyond smartwatches, the same episode also predicted another major technological breakthrough: video calls. In Lisa's futuristic world, characters communicate via screens that enable real-time conversations, something that is now part of our daily lives through apps like Zoom, FaceTime, and WhatsApp. In the 1990s, this idea seemed far too futuristic, but today, it's hard to imagine the world without it, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic, when virtual meetings became essential. This episode demonstrates that The Simpsons don't just make predictions based on political or social events, they also have a keen eye for technological advancements. But was this merely a lucky guess, or were the show's creators paying close attention to scientific research and emerging trends of the time? In 2012, The Simpsons released an episode titled Lisa Goes Gaga, in which the iconic singer Lady Gaga delivers a spectacular performance for the residents of Springfield. During her show, the artist appears suspended by cables, flying over the audience in a visually grand spectacle. At the time, the episode seemed like just another fun satire of Gaga's eccentric style, but 5 years later, this scene would become eerily real. At the 2017 Super Bowl, Lady Gaga put on one of the most memorable halftime shows in the event's history. Right at the beginning of her performance, the singer appeared at the top of the stadium and then jumped into the arena, attached to suspension cables, exactly as it had been depicted in The Simpsons years earlier. The airborne entrance was so similar that many fans started sharing images comparing the two scenes, amazed at the accuracy of the prediction. Beyond the visually impactful performance, the episode also captured the essence of Lady Gaga's real-life shows: extravagant costumes, choreographed dances, and a unique stage presence. This raises the question: did Gaga's team take inspiration from the episode to design her show, or did The Simpsons actually manage to predict yet another major pop culture moment? Whether it was pure coincidence or a case of art imitating life, this episode reinforces the idea that The Simpsons not only observe trends, but in some mysterious way, manage to foresee major entertainment events before they happen. But how many other iconic future performances are already hidden within the episodes, just waiting to be discovered? In 2006, The Simpsons aired the episode Homer's Paternity Coot, which featured a scene that, years later, would bear an uncanny resemblance to a tragic real-life event. In the episode, Homer and his father embark on a deep-sea expedition, only to become trapped in the depths of the ocean while exploring a sunken ship. Time is crucial as their oxygen begins to run out, increasing the tension and desperation of the situation. This scene, which at the time was just a comedic moment within the episode's narrative, bore a shocking similarity to the real-life tragedy of the Titan submersible owned by the company OceanGate, which disappeared in June 2023 during an expedition to the wreckage of the Titanic. Just like in the show, the crew found themselves trapped at the bottom of the ocean, while the world anxiously followed the desperate search for the missing vessel. However, in real life, the outcome was tragic, with confirmation that the submersible suffered a catastrophic implosion. The most astonishing aspect is that The Simpsons didn't just predict a deep-sea mission going wrong, but also the tension surrounding the oxygen depletion and the panic caused by isolation in deep waters. The episode, though humorous, eerily captured the essence of what would later become one of the most widely covered maritime disasters of the 21st century. How could a simple cartoon foresee such a specific and distressing event? The eerie similarities between the fictional and real-life events once again raise the intriguing question about The Simpsons' predictive nature. Was it just a case of coincidence, or do the show's writers have an uncanny ability to spot patterns in reality that eventually come true? In 2014, The Simpsons aired an episode titled The War of Art, which featured a curious scene. British billionaire Richard Branson, founder of the Virgin Group, is shown floating in zero gravity inside a spaceship, seemingly enjoying a casual trip into space. At the time, this image seemed like nothing more than a joke about Branson's eccentric personality. After all, he had already expressed interest in space exploration. However, 7 years later, the scene became reality. In July 2021, Richard Branson successfully completed his long-awaited spaceflight aboard the VSS Unity, a spacecraft developed by Virgin Galactic. The billionaire became one of the first civilians to travel beyond Earth's atmosphere in a commercial spaceflight, marking the beginning of a new era in space tourism. The similarities between the Simpsons episode and the real-life event were striking, from the way Branson was shown floating in the spacecraft to the concept of a privately funded space trip. What makes this prediction even more fascinating is that when the episode aired, Virgin Galactic space plans were still in their early development stages, and no one knew for sure whether the project would be successful. However, The Simpsons seemed to have already anticipated that Branson's obsession with space would eventually become a reality. But how did the writers capture this detail with such accuracy? This case strengthens the theory that The Simpsons don't just make random predictions, but have an incredibly sharp eye for emerging trends, foreseeing scientific advancements and technological innovations before they happen. If the show successfully predicted the rise of space tourism, what other futuristic breakthroughs might still be hidden in its episodes, waiting to become reality? In 1993, The Simpsons aired an episode titled Dollar Springfield, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Legalized Gambling, which featured a seemingly absurd scene that years later would become eerily real. In the episode, a magician duo inspired by the illusionists Siegfried and Roy performs an extravagant show in Las Vegas alongside a majestic white tiger. However, during the performance, the animal suddenly turns on its trainers and attacks them on stage, causing chaos in the audience. Although the scene seemed like just an exaggerated joke at the time, a decade later, in 2003, Roy Horn, one half of the famous Siegfried and Roy duo, was attacked by one of his own tigers during a live show at the Mirage Hotel in Las Vegas. The animal, named Manticore, bit Roy by the neck and dragged him across the stage, causing severe injuries that led to his hospitalization and ultimately ended his career. The accident shocked the entertainment world, as the duo was renowned for their seemingly harmonious relationship with their tigers. Look, if The Simpsons have already predicted you being attacked by a tiger, maybe it's time to change careers. Because years later, that's exactly what happened to Siegfried and Roy. Creepy. What's most remarkable is that The Simpsons not only predicted a tiger attack, but also accurately captured the scenario and context, two famous illusionists being attacked by one of their own animals during a live show. The level of precision in this prediction has sparked countless discussions among fans and theorists, who began questioning whether the show actually possesses a gift for foreseeing events, or if it's all just a matter of statistical coincidence. What initially seemed like just a satirical take on the dangers of using wild animals in entertainment ended up becoming a dark reflection of reality. But this raises a disturbing question. How many other shocking events have already been anticipated by the show and are just waiting to happen? In 1994, long before smartphones became an essential part of our daily lives, The Simpsons featured a scene that predicted one of the biggest challenges in modern digital communication: the errors caused by autocorrect. In the episode Lisa on Ice, one of Springfield's bullies, Kearney, tries to write the message "Beat up Martin" on his digital assistant at the time, the Apple Newton. However, due to a flawed handwriting recognition system, the phrase is transformed into "Eat up Martha." The scene, which seemed like just a joke about technology at the time, ended up perfectly representing the issues we would later face with virtual keyboards. The Apple Newton was a real device, a portable assistant launched by Apple in the early 1990s. It was marketed as a revolutionary tool that allowed users to take handwritten notes, which were then converted into text. However, its recognition technology was unreliable, often generating confusing messages. leading to consumer frustration and ridicule. The Newtons' failure led Apple to abandon the concept, but the need for a typing correction tool remained. When modern smartphones emerged, especially with the launch of the iPhone in 2007, Apple reintroduced the idea of automatic word correction. However, instead of improving the user experience, the feature quickly became infamous for turning normal phrases into absurd and embarrassing messages, giving rise to countless memes and internet jokes. The Newtons' flaw had come back to haunt Apple, and the Simpsons episode became even more relevant. What makes this prediction fascinating is that The Simpsons not only predicted the idea of an autocorrect system malfunctioning, but also how it would impact our communication. If the joke made sense in 1994, today it is more real than ever. But this makes us wonder how many other jokes from the show are still waiting to become part of our everyday reality. In 2010, The Simpsons aired the episode Boy Meets Curl, in which Homer and Marge discover a new talent in curling, a sport that is relatively unpopular in the United States. The storyline takes them to the Olympic team, where they surprisingly defeat Sweden and win a gold medal. At the time, the idea seemed completely absurd, as Sweden had long been a dominant force in curling, while the US had little tradition in the sport. However, 8 years later, this prediction would come true. At the 2018 Winter Olympics, held in Pyeongchang, South Korea, the US curling team shocked the world by defeating Sweden in the final and winning its first ever gold medal in the sport. The result was considered one of the biggest upsets in Winter Olympics history, as the Swedes were heavily favored. The final score of 10-7 for the Americans reflected the same underdog spirit portrayed in the Simpsons episode, where an unlikely team managed to overcome one of the world's best squads. The similarity between fiction and reality amazed fans, especially since, before this event, the United States had never been a major competitor in international curling. Furthermore, the way the victory was depicted in the show, with an unexpected team surpassing one of the sport's greatest powerhouses, perfectly matched the real-life narrative of the US curling team, which had an uphill battle on its way to Olympic gold. This prediction may have been just a coincidence, but it reinforces The Simpsons' incredible ability to foresee improbable events. If a single episode about curling managed to predict one of the most unexpected moments in Olympic history, what other surprises might still be waiting to become reality? Over more than 3 decades, The Simpsons have solidified themselves not only as one of the most iconic animated series on television, but also as a true enigma in pop culture. The predictions presented here, ranging from scientific and technological advancements to political and sports events, demonstrate a chilling accuracy that defies any simple explanation. Are they just coincidences? A sharp eye for emerging trends? Or is there something more mysterious behind the show's ability to foresee the future? Regardless of the answer, one thing is certain. The Simpsons continue to amaze audiences with their sharp humor and unique vision of the world. And if so many predictions have already come true, who's to say what other events are still waiting to unfold? If you enjoyed this journey of discoveries, don't forget to leave a like, share with your friends, and comment below on what caught your attention the most. Maybe others will relate, and we can start an exciting discussion. And of course, subscribe to the channel for more content where curiosity knows no limits.